So we move now to the United States to talk to Colonel Chris White over there. There's some news coming out about the Afrikaners, Amerikaners, and he's here to defend, fact check, or correct things he feels are wrong. Let's listen to him over here.
Even on a slow news day, people generate news. Now, I'm in the middle of nowhere here on a backcountry road, not too far
Let me
from
go pee.
Elevations Creek, a world-renowned bass and fly fishing location. A road that you wouldn't expect much traffic, but mark my words, somebody will probably come down this road while I'm filming. We'll see. But even on slow news days, stories come that make you shake your head and have you refute the nonsense. And this one in the South African. Now, the title of this one is No Food, Jobs, or Phones. Afrikaner refugee, in quotations, family stranded in the U.S. Well, okay, the question whether stranded is in quotes because we don't know if that's true. But the refugee thing, once again, South African media, this is the South African, and they're putting in quotes. Why? These people are legal refugees. You may not like that, but that's U.S. law. And that's an eternal sovereign issue for us. South Africans are fond, especially politicians in the media, of saying that we're a sovereign nation. You are. You can do what you like within the norms of international relations. And so can we. We're a sovereign nation. This is our law. And these people have been granted refugee status because they're suffering from unjust racial discrimination as per the conclusion of U.S. government officials. Case closed. Take the quotations off refugee. They are refugees. It's as simple as that. They start the story off with a subtitle, American Dream, with a question mark. An Afrikaner refugee, once again quotes, family has been left without assistance, including food, after arriving in the United States. Now, I've researched this story and I've talked to people involved who know what's going on here, and this story is a lot more complicated than this story in the South African would lead you to believe. And there's a number of problems with the story, which I'm going to point out, okay? Also, I'm going to ask the question is, what passes for journalism in South Africa? This story appears to be simply cutting and pasting quotes and statements from other stories and from a video, not actually doing any analysis or actually reporting any news.
Yo, so far, if you're here, you're hearing that the Amerikaners are kind of destitute. Some of them are left without answers. And so let's hear a little bit about what is going on there. You get what I'm saying? Let's quickly leave Colonel Chris White for a moment and hop on over to a video that I think he's actually referring to. And he says it's the South African. If he mentioned that, then that's the South African that we are looking at here. This is their YouTube channel. They've dropped an article as well. So he's reading an article, and this is the video that this is based on. Let's hear that, then we'll hop on over back to him.
No food, job or phones. Afrikaner refugee family is stranded in US. An Afrikaner refugee family has reportedly been left stranded in the US and is appealing for help on Facebook. The startling revelation was made by a South African expat on TikTok. Two groups of white South Africans have taken up refugee status in the US in recent weeks as part of a program open to persecuted people. On her TikTok account, South African expat at camp revealed that she had come across an Afrikaner refugee family in dire need of help. The family of 4 was reportedly stranded at a hotel in Montana without food, money, or a cell phone. Instead, they had reached out to a Facebook group for help. The woman said of the refugees, they were understanding that they would be arriving here for complete assistance. People thought they would be arriving at a house, a job, medical insurance, and other things. It isn't that way at all. She added, because of the political situation, they are really struggling to get jobs. The woman revealed that she had left South Africa more than a decade ago, but had gone through a lengthy process. She also criticized Afrikaner refugees for having unrealistic expectations. She continued, one side of me is like, K that. My husband and I went through all of the red tape, and we got our visas, we've got our green card. We've been here 10 years. We did everything the right way. Here, these people, regardless of what they were promised, just came here expecting everything. Under the post, the woman added that she was assisting the family with a car as she was a humanitarian. Last month, the Department of International Relations, DIRCO, stated that South African refugees in the US would not have access to any diplomatic assistance whilst abroad. That persecuted South Africans would instead be assisted by the US Refugee Admissions Program, USRAP.
Hey yo, I kind of got the wrong video. I'll try to quickly search. We're here together. There's the TikTok account, Cat MPT, and we'll have a listen to her directly, but you're hearing the summary of it. Let's just let this go.
Which was signed as an executive order by President Donald Trump. As part of the Afrikaner Act, the group was also given priority to refugee status, which provides them with start-up assistance like money, jobs, and even a house. Can they return to SA? According to DIRCO spokesperson Crispin Fairai, refugees simply can't return home for a break and go back. He added, even the word itself refugee suggests that you are seeking refuge from a particular country. DIRCO added that refugees would be welcomed back as citizens. However, they would have to revoke their status in order for this to happen.
Okay, so that unfortunately was not the video. There's one where she's speaking, bruh. Where is it? Where can I find it? Where can I find that piece? Let's play a bit of it.
Despite all of the rhetoric surrounding the bloody mass deportations, we have...
Hold up, let me jump straight to where she probably gives this story herself. Maybe we can go back and listen to this lady again after Chris White. Here goes.
The refugees.
So I said the other day about how I don't think about the South African refugees, which I don't, but there's this group on Facebook, and there are many of them, like South Africans in Montana or South Africans in Texas or South Africans in the US, and there's this one group which is kind of female focused, and I've removed myself from all groups. I mean, we've been here 10 years, but I've kind of stayed in this one group because every now and again they post some like really good like recipes or just like random shit from South Africa that you're kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And the lady who runs the group had been posting like everywhere about looking for people who live close to this one town, which I live kind of like 2.5 hours away from, here in Montana. And I'd forgotten about another group that I was in, which hardly ever has any posts in. And because I'm friends with her on Facebook, she posted in there and the post came up. So long story short, a family of refugees has been placed in this town, and they have had like no food. I know that there's this, and I don't know what to think because I didn't really follow it at all when it happened. But I think they were of the understanding that they were going to be arriving here to like complete assistance. And I think people here thought that they were going to be arriving to a house and a job and medical insurance and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it actually isn't that way at all. There have been like 4 adults in a hotel room with no money, no cell phone, no anything. And obviously because of the political situation, they are really struggling to get jobs, struggling. And I kind of feel like those are obvious reasons. And I, like the humanitarian in me, I can't ignore the fact that these people are struggling. But there's this one side of me that's like,
hey yo, the Amerikaners are struggling. Pause. Were they promised everything? Were they promised to have as much as they had here in South Africa before they left? Have they been promised an improved standard of living? Is that guaranteed? I mean, they could have been rich here. One of them we've seen is the guy who apparently was owning a mine, who is not even a farmer, who actually benefited from BEE, who was on an interview saying that he is having to leave his house behind. He's not going to pay for it. He's going to lose it. If that guy had a house and a pool, does he get a house, a pool, a mining company, and DEI for white people on the other side? What happens to him? If he's worse off, but he's safer, because the US is safer than South Africa, what happens?
Fuck that. Myself and my husband, we went through all of the red tape and we got our visas. We were transferred here with another company, and we got our green cards, and we've been here 10 years. And like we did everything the right way. And here these people, regardless of what they were promised, just came here expecting everything, and it's not what they expected it to be. And I don't think they can go back to South Africa because they've kind of given up their rights. I don't know the full story. So I've made contact with the lady. Obviously there's a lot of like PTSD from this whole thing, and I'm struggling to communicate with her, which is quite strange. And I don't even know what I'm going to go and do there. Like there's not a lot I can do. It's not like I can get them jobs. It's not like I can, yeah, I don't know, but there's this humanitarian side of me that's like, wow, shit, people shouldn't struggle like this, but there are so many people who are struggling like this, and I feel for them, but I also feel like, wow, you want me to go just because I'm South African? I don't know, what would you do?
Oh yeah, so Colonel Chris White, finish up.
So an Afrikaner refugee family reportedly been stranded in the U.S. and is appealing for help on Facebook. Well, that's a few days old now. They've gotten help, and not necessarily from Facebook, but from other Afrikaners who helped them out and other refugees. The startling revelation was made by a South African expat on TikTok. Your source is a TikTok video for someone with 300 or 400 followers on TikTok. Not that.
I mean, why is being on TikTok not credible? If she's living in the United States and she has information that is valid to some degree, she's close enough to it inside a WhatsApp group for white foreigners. Why are we busy calling white people expats all the time? These are foreigners in the United States, right? Or are they expats from our point of view? We're saying expats, those who have left. Or is expats what people walk around calling themselves? Hi, I'm an expat. You're a foreigner. Is that what you mean? But never mind that. She's there. She's in WhatsApp groups with other foreigners, and she's speaking about people whom you confirm have since gotten help, not from the WhatsApp group, but other Afrikaners, you say? So she's credible in some way. What is the issue now? That she's on TikTok?
They can't produce good content, but that leads one to question 300 or 400 followers on TikTok. Not that they can't produce good content, but that leads one to question the story from the very beginning, if that's your source. And that TikToker has since removed the video and published a new video in which they say that the information they had was third-hand. So they were relaying third-hand information, which you're now reporting as news on the South African, which would make it fourth-hand information. No primary sources, fourth-hand social media information. That's about as useful as flushing a toilet. Doesn't mean it can't be true, but you should get a source that confirms your information. And on her TikTok account, the South African expat who posted this video is mentioned here. I'm not going to go into who that is. But the person said the refugees, they were understanding that they would be arriving here in the U.S. for complete assistance. People thought they would be arriving at a house, a job, medical insurance, and other things. It isn't that way at all. Well, that statement's true. It isn't that way at all. And where did you come to the conclusion that they thought that? Did they tell you that? And who told them that? No one's ever told anyone that, to my knowledge. I've been very clear since February 7th about this program, what assistance is available, including the financial. And I was the first person to do that. And go ahead, dispute that. But the digits are there. The receipts are there. The video is posted, the 10th of February, something like that, maybe the 11th of February, that talks about financial assistance under the immigration nationality law for people coming over here. So who told them they were getting all these things? No one gives you jobs. This isn't South Africa. This isn't a patronage machine. Maybe Chicago, but the country is not a patronage machine. So this person who posted on TikTok is correct. It doesn't work that way. But where did you derive that from? Did they tell you that? You don't say. You just imply that that's what they said. And this person criticized the refugees. And once again, in quotations for refugees. Why? Here are these people, regardless of what they were promised, just came here expecting everything. Really? Well, if that's the case, then they really have unrealistic expectations because they were never told that. They were never told that. But she added here that they couldn't get a job. Said because of the political situation, they were really struggling to get jobs. Well, first off, they've been here less than a month. That's struggling to get a job? I seriously doubt that. I mean, I bet you a lot of these people came over, have been without jobs for 5, 10, 15 years or longer because of racism in South Africa and people being excluded from the job market because they're...
So, in Colonel Chris White's view, these were unemployed farmers. Wasn't this all to save farmers who are being murdered on farms? And farmers are rich. So now he's portraying them as people who've been unemployed. So this has been the unemployed white bum refugee program, or this has been white farmers protection against genocide and farm murder program. He's now saying they were unemployed.
They're white. You get a job? I seriously doubt that. I mean, I bet you a lot of these people came over, have been without jobs for 5, 10, 15 years or longer because of racism in South Africa and people being excluded from the job market because they're white or being made redundant or colored or Indian. So they can't get a job because of the political situation. What political situation are we talking about here? What political situation? The state in which this occurs, these people were doxxed, so I'm not telling any secret here. They've already been revealed, but I won't mention the state. But the state in which they now reside has an unemployment rate of South Africa, it's over 40%, although the government claims it's 30+%. But the unemployment rate where they live is 2.7%. That's full employment, essentially. What political situation is keeping them from getting a job? They have legal status to get a job. They're not illegal immigrants, so they don't have to worry about ICE rounding them up and chasing them out. They're white. They're living in a state that's 90+% white. That'll help you narrow down where they're at in case you're nosy. Yeah. So what political situation is keeping them from getting a job? Is this just a gratuitous statement, or was it a claim by them? But see, this isn't news. This is just hearsay, absolute hearsay. This isn't journalism. I mean, seriously, folks, this is what passes for journalism in South Africa. How do people even get qualified to be journalists in South Africa? Last month, this story says the director of the Department of International Relations, Durko, that's the foreign ministry, said that refugees, once again quotes, in the U.S. would not have access to any diplomatic assistance whilst abroad. Well, that's nonsense. That's factually untrue. Is the South African government denying South African citizens access to consular services in the United States? This is an issue. This is an issue. That's not legitimate. That's not allowed. You can't spitefully deny services to your citizens because they sought refuge abroad because of either conflict or governance issues in your country. That makes you a pariah nation. So if Durko actually said that, they're factually wrong. And the South African government better damn well provide consular services to their citizens residing in this country as refugees, or they will be responsible for what comes after that.
Fafo, screw around and find out. Colonel Chris White's here to remind you, you damn well.
Now, here they say the persecuted, with quotation marks again, the persecuted South Africans would instead be assisted by the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program, which was signed as an executive order by President Trump. That's factually incorrect. What kind of research is involved here? That's factually incorrect. The Afrikaner Act does not exist. There's no such thing. There is a bill in the House of Representatives introduced by Texas Representative Troy Nehls, which seeks to let white people come over to the United States under a specifically designated, lawfully assigned program called the Afrikaner Act. But there's no act. President Trump signed an executive order exercising his authority under existing federal law, the U.S. Immigration and Nationality Act of 1980, not the Afrikaner Act. That's nonsense. Utter nonsense.
For white people, remember they suddenly said that this is for coloreds as well, but it seems like all of that was for optics. Doesn't seem like there's coloreds, doesn't seem like there's dudes in the Cape Flats, mothers and young children who are wanting to escape violence in the Cape Flats who are being allowed to go. Let's hear this one more time.
It's under a specifically designated, lawfully assigned program called the Afrikaner Act. But what kind of research is involved here? That's factually incorrect. The Afrikaner Act does not exist. There's no such thing. There is a bill in the House of Representatives introduced by Texas Representative Troy Nehls, which seeks to let white people come over to the United States under a specifically designated, lawfully assigned program called the Afrikaner Act. But there's no act. President Trump signed an executive order exercising his authority under existing federal law, the U.S. Immigration and Nationality Act of 1980, not the Afrikaner Act. That's nonsense. Utter nonsense. It's U.S. law, not an executive order. And they are persecuted. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been approved for refugee status. Simple as that. As part of the Afrikaner Act,
persecuted and unemployed rich farmers.
The group was also given priority to refugee status. Well, that's under immigration law, not under an Afrikaner Act, which doesn't exist as law. And it says that the Afrikaner Act provides them with startup assistance like money, jobs, and even a house. That's factually untrue once again. There's no such thing as the Afrikaner Act. Those resources are provided under existing law, under programs funded by the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of State, in which they fund non-government organizations in 2024 to the tune of $2.7 billion, over 300 NGOs in the network, which used to include the racist Episcopal Church, which no longer participates because they're racist against white people and they're factually uninformed because they're a bunch of bigots. And so they're no longer participating in the program, but there's almost 300 other NGOs involved. It isn't the Afrikaner Act. That it doesn't exist, okay? And then down here, they wrap up saying Durko added refugees would be welcome back as citizens. However, they would have to revoke their status in order for this to happen. No, you can't force people to revoke their refugee status. That's illegitimate. That goes contrary to international norms. That makes you a pariah state.
So people can go back to the state that persecutes them, visit, chill, do shopping, get some clothes, taste some original boerewors and cook sisters, and then fly back to the United States as a refugee. So they have to revoke that status when they come back, and Chris White is going to stand against that. He's saying that they have to keep it, or they have the option of keeping it. Let's hear how that works.
South African citizens remain South African citizens until and unless they become a citizen of another nation. It's as simple as that. You can't make them stateless. If Durko said that, that's a fraudulent statement, and it should be exposed.
Hold on, man. What is he correcting here? Should they revoke their citizenship? What? Let's hear exactly what he's correcting, bro.
Welcome back as citizens. However, they would have a program, but there's almost 300 other NGOs involved. It isn't the Afrikaner Act. That it doesn't exist, okay? And then down here, they wrap up saying Durko added refugees would be welcome back as citizens. However, they would have to revoke their status in order for this to happen.
So they'd have to revoke their status as refugees. What answer is Colonel Chris White going to give here?
No, you can't force people to revoke their refugee status. That's illegitimate.
Okay. So you can't force them to. doesn't it naturally go away because they've come back to the state where they are violated?
That goes contrary to international norms. That makes you a pariah state. South African citizens remain South African citizens until and unless they become a citizen of another nation. It's as simple as that. You can't make them stateless.
Who said anything about making them stateless? Who said anything about their citizenship? They remain South African. That's not a point in contention. Like Colonel Chris likes to argue these straw man points. Like he comes and he fetches these things. In Sizulu, people would say, "Uglanda la umncane khona." And he goes and refutes these very tiny little things. What's important here is for us to find out if the Amerikaners are happy over there. Are they living a good life? Could you show us that? Advertise their safety and their improved wellness to some more here so that more can join. I mean, optimize your strategy. Do this the best way that you can. I mean, defending points with your mouth only, refuting points here and there, not showing the real results of what you are seeking to achieve. Let's see more of that.
If Durko said that, that's a fraudulent statement, and it should be exposed. And finally, in all caps at the bottom of this article, which appears to be just cut and paste from news reports and comments from that video on TikTok, do you think Afrikaner refugees, in quotes, were unrealistic about expecting a better life in the U.S.? No, I don't. I'm in touch with several of the 59ers, the first cohort that came over, and actually someone in the second cohort. I don't know anyone that's unhappy about coming over here. And unrealistic? No. Let's see. Came to this country and in 2 weeks had a social security number, had job interviews, bought a brand new car, essentially. My car's 10 years old. This person's car is 2 years old. I call that brand new. Bought a new car, has a bank account, got a job offer, making more money than I made in 25 years serving my nation in uniform. Annual salary.
Are they making more money than they made on the farms that they used to own and the mines and the BEE deals that they were benefiting from? I'm going to quote one of the guys. We'll actually watch his video before moving on.
Starting this weekend. Very happy. Cupboard full of food, courtesy of the Refugee Assistance Resettlement Agent. I can talk to other people around the country having similar experiences. Very happy that they're here. So do I think...
A cupboard full of food. Aren't Afrikaners the people who provide food, produce it, and provide food security? So now they are secure with a cupboard full of food. Not a farm, not an orchard. Woo!
Think that they had unrealistic expectations, better life? No. They're not awake at night, waking up every 15 minutes, waiting to be raped, murdered, and having their throats slit, or being treated like crap walking through the store because they're white, or denied service by government employees because they're white, or denied medical care and watching their parents die by being denied medical care in a government hospital because they're white, or because they're colored, because they're Indian. No, I think that they're perfectly happy and content.
White people can't go to a government hospital, they're denied access. Is this true? Is this true? Colonel Chris, would you fact check people and then lie? Wow.
By and large. Is it a cakewalk? Is it a gift? No. But this is the land of the free. You have freedom. Look at me out here in the middle of nowhere recording this video. Perfectly safe. I'm not worried about someone creeping out of the woods to murder me or rape me or drag me off there, rob me and steal my car. Yeah, I don't think that they are regretting their decisions. So this story is meant to give people the impression that it's not good.
Land of the free. Have you seen ICE agents? How they're yanking people? Even a senator. There's a senator who was asking a question and ICE agents packed him up, pinned him to the ground, cuffed him. That's the land of the free. Cue here that video.
Good come to America. Again, I've never encouraged anyone to take me off there, rob me, and steal my car. Yeah, I don't think that they are regretting their decisions. So this story is meant to give people the impression that it's not good to come to America. Again, I've never encouraged anyone to come here, but I'm also not discouraging. It's not my place. My place is to tell you the truth and rubbish the lies. Now, son of a gun, we've been talking for almost 11 minutes and nobody came down this road. That must be the first time I've ever recorded here that didn't happen. This is how it's supposed to be. Quiet. Nobody on this back road. So, South Africa, what do you say? Do you think the refugees made a mistake? Or do you think this sensationalist yellow journalism is the problem? I think that's the problem. Cheers.
Okay, now let's quickly have a look at that guy who gave an interview.
South Africans arrived in the US where they've been granted refugee status. President Trump says the refugee applications were expedited because the people concerned were victims of racial discrimination, something South Africa's government denies. The Afrikaners are descended from Dutch settlers who arrived 4 centuries ago to South Africa and who led the government which brought in apartheid, a racially segregated political system which has led to discrimination against black South Africans, and it's no longer in force. Well, usually it takes years for the US government to process refugee applications, but this group waited only 3 months. Well, our North America correspondent Nomia Iqbal has been speaking to one of those who made the journey.
If you're white, you're wrong in South Africa. You're a land thief, you are a racist, The whole time it's being told, and there is racist white people, plenty of them.
You say you're not a racist white person?
No, not at all. I've got many black friends. I think I've got more African black men as friends as white friends. I'm tired of being told, just because I'm white, I'm a thief. Just because I'm white, I'm wrong in this. I had nothing to do with apartheid. Nothing.
Is there anything specific that's happened, Charles, that made you think, I've got to get out of here? I've got to leave?
After the death rates and stuff and my machinery being cut up, and I'm still, after reporting everything to the police, not getting any protection or anything like that. The only thing that's left on my farm is a sign that says mining area. All the fences has been taken off, boom gates has been broken off.
There are voices out there, including the South African president.
So this was a farmer with machinery and a farm. So he's now in the United States with a cupboard, safe with food.
Who has called you cowards.
Yeah.
You've got other Afrikaners who are saying that you're not refugees, you're opportunists, that you've abandoned the country. What would you say to those people?
I had to leave a 5-bedroom house, which I will lose now because I'm not going to pay for it, behind, my car behind, my dogs behind, my mother behind. It is not, I didn't come here for fun, but...
His house and his car and his mother. Let's hear that again.
5-bedroom house.
5-bedroom
which I will
house.
lose now because I'm not going to pay for it. Behind, my car behind, my dogs behind, my mother behind. It is not, I didn't come here for fun, but my children are safe.
What was it like when you got off the shuttle bus and came into that hangar and were greeted by the Trump administration?
It was overwhelming. I didn't expect it because I thought we're going to be in a shuttle bus, taken somewhere, and we must start working. All of us that is there, we know we're going to start here from the bottom because we are the new people here. We're going to start from the bottom.
Do you ever worry that you might be caught up in some big...
Start from the bottom. Where were you here? Were you at the bottom here and you've now gone to another bottom? There's something that is not making mathematical sense about what Colonel Chris says about these people and what they say about themselves.
Political game here, that you're a pawn somehow.
Yeah, it's a scary thing, but people mustn't think we're just taking advantage of this. We're coming here to make a contribution to the country.
Old tweets of yours have been dug up in which you appear to have made anti-Semitic comments, and so people are questioning, should you be here?
Yeah,
what would you say to that?
I would like them...
What would you like to clarify?
I've deleted the comment, but I was actually thinking I should have not deleted it. If you can look where I commented on, it was Passover, the Orthodox Jews, and I'm Christian, were spitting and screaming and bumping Christians walking with the cross. For me as a Christian, that is not acceptable. In Israel, and I went and I said something on Twitter, which I copy and pasted from somebody else's page, because if you go read my post, you'll see it's not the way I write.
So you had quoted someone else. I mean, the quotes...
I copied and pasted it.
The quotes were anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
They said Jews are dangerous people, they're untrustworthy, they're not God's chosen people.
I was super angry too.
So you did it out of anger?
Yeah. And I was in hospital at that point of time. I was on morphine. But that's not an excuse. I'm not trying to make an excuse. Even now, if I would see any person going against my religion, I will speak up against it.
You have high hopes being here in America. Is there a part of you that is anxious that it might not work out?
No, to be honest with you, because of my belief, I believe this is God's plan for me.
Okay, there's the dude. We're done with him. And so now, let's listen to a bit from Steve Bannon, okay? He's here talking about Musk, whom he has issues with. Cue here to back when I spoke about it. And so let's listen to Steve Bannon now that Musk and Trump have fallen out. And Trump has had some tweets from Elon Musk calling him a file, saying that he's in the Epstein files. A loyal Trumpist, the leader of MAGA, who hates Musk, was here giving an interview on that issue. So let's listen to that right quick.
At the same time, an extraordinary fallout between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Crystal and the team have already covered much of that, but we do have some new developments, mostly within the MAGA movement, who are really turning on Elon Musk. Steve Bannon, who of course has been gunning for Musk from day one, really seizing the opportunity to drive the point home that he's an interloper, he's a big tech oligarch, and now he wants to deport him. Let's take a listen.
And then as soon as President Trump comes out today, and President Trump saying it in the nicest way possible about the bill, right? The bill, but bing, bang, bang. The guy gets up and starts tweeting the most vicious stuff you could tweet. So all the fanboys defend this. He accused President Trump of basically being a group with those pedophiles on the island. He called for the president to be impeached and J.D. Vance to take his role. As hard as we've worked and all the years that we've worked and this audience has worked, some punk is going to sit there and go, he should be impeached. And hey, as sure as the turning of the earth, if those progressives rub up on him and say, hey, they're never going to buy the Teslas, where they're going to buy the Teslas, they rub up on him, he'll write a $500 million check for Hakeem Jeffries. He'll be across the thing looking to impeach President Trump, looking to help steal the 28 election, looking to imprison President Trump. So here's my point. Let's get ahead of it. And shipping 13 million out of here. Let me change that. 13 million in one, because Elon Musk is illegal and he's got to go too. Okay, you're going to ship these other people home. Let's start with the South Africans. Okay, and
let's start with the South Africans. So Colonel Chris Wyatt is defending the Amerikaners over there and trying to give us the impression that it's only the left who are against the Amerikaners. That is the impression that Colonel Chris Wyatt wants to give, that those in opposition the radical lefties with blue hair, the homosexuals, the trans people, those who imported people from El Salvador, India, Nigeria, and South America, Mexico, the Biden administration, the Kamala Harris. He says those are the people who hate this, but this is an ultra right-winger saying let's deport Elon Musk and the South Africans.
Go 30th election, looking to imprison President Trump. So here's my point. Let's get ahead of it. And shipping 13 million out of here. Let me change that. 13 million in one, because Elon Musk is illegal and he's got to go too. Okay, you're going to ship these other people home. Let's start with the South Africans. Okay, and I got a couple other could go too, but he's illegal. Deport immediately.
We all want to cut federal spending. His promise and commitment to the president of cutting $1 trillion in federal spending was something he stuck to the end until we found out it was all a fraud. I mean, this is what caused the physical altercation you had in the West Wing right outside the Oval Office between the Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, who's a good friend of mine and a very even-handed guy. He and Elon got into a physical altercation.
You hear that? We're not here for all of that, but you saw Elon Musk show up with, a bruise on his eye, right? So we're getting past that.